The leftist media has been blasted for their coverage of the attempted assassination on Donald Trump and subsequent fallout. MSNBC and CNN were condemned for playing a part in creating division and hatred towards Donald Trump, which culminated in an assassination attempt. Sky News All Stars Chris Kenny, Alex Stein and Nigel Farage take a look at the leftist media's coverage of Donald Trump's assassination attempt. The leftist media has been condemned for creating hate and division amongst voters throughout the election campaign. And this came to a head on Saturday night when Republican nominee Donald Trump had an attempt on his life. The coverage that followed from the likes of CNN and MSNBC has been blasted, with Sky News All-Star Alex Stein saying the media is the biggest fraud in the country.
And this sentiment that a lot of people, I'm sure, do have, that they wish he had been shot and killed, this event will do nothing to allay that or change that. But the question now is, given how high the temperature is there any way to turn it down?
No, there's no way to turn it down because, listen, when you saw CNN report on this, they reported on it as Trump falling down after hearing loud noises. The media here in America is the biggest fraud of any corporation, of anybody that exists, because they will literally look at us in the face and lie and try to misconstrue what actually happened. So until the American media actually reports on stuff truthfully, we're just going to be in a constant state of confusion. So it's very sad. I just can't believe the media would even say that Trump fell down. And even Joe Biden, it took him hours and hours and hours for him to admit that this was even an assassination attempt. So imagine living in a country where we have no transparency, and that's going to be the big key to this, is giving us transparency on what really happened in Pennsylvania.
Former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer agrees, saying the leftist media is trying to blame Donald Trump for being shot.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. CNN reporting initially that Donald Trump was taken by the Secret Service after he fell. USA Today, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all disgusting. And to your point about the host, Margaret Brennan, the so-called host of of Face the Nation, talking about how Donald Trump's rhetoric caused this. Martha Raddatz of ABC News this morning talking about it in the same way, that it's Trump's rhetoric. Somehow he's to blame for him getting shot.
He goes on to say the reason the media were upset and tried to undermine Trump is because he showed strength.
The reason that they're upset is that he showed strength. He showed perseverance. He showed American grit. You know, last week, Biden said over and over again, when I get knocked down, I get back up, blah, blah, blah. Well, Donald Trump never got knocked down. He stayed up and he showed why Americans love a fighter. And here's the problem with your Jake Tapper quote. They initially reported he fell down and was helped up by Secret Service. They are trying to equivocate this. They want to put him on the same plane as Joe Biden, who did fall down, right? Here's the problem. They are so in the tank for the left. They're trying anything they can do to undermine him. That was a sign of strength, and that picture will go down in history as one of the most iconic American moments. And I think they just hate it. Think about this for a second, Andrew, and for your audience. In your most vulnerable state, having been your life attacked, and you still don't at that moment know if more bullets are coming, who else has been hit, how bad you yourself have been hit. His immediate reaction is to show strength. I don't know how many other people could say that. I would fathom to say many of these media people would be on the ground in a pool of their own. Well, I'm not going to go. I will just say, I don't think a single one of them would be standing. I think they'd be crying and cowering.
The media is being slammed for creating an environment of hate and division, according to Sky News All-Star Nigel Farage.
We've got a reaction here from Nigel Farage, who, of course, is a great friend of Donald Trump's. And, of course, Nigel Farage did brilliantly in the recent elections. Caroline's going to read it out.
Yes. So Nigel Farage, he said on X, mainstream media have spread a narrative of hatred against my friend Donald Trump. I hope they are proud of themselves, disgusting people. And that's exactly what we've been talking about.
I think it's also worth noting, isn't it, James? The the American people, all the assassination attempts, whether it's Lincoln, Kennedy, Martin Luther King, the other Kennedy, Reagan, they always go after the good guys. Well, they always go after the very best of the best. And now Trump joins that pantheon.
Sky News All-Star Chris Kenny agrees, saying the media enables left-wing extremists.
The point I wanted to make is, of course, there's extremists on both sides. We know that there are nutters in the Trump camp who have said and done the wrong thing over the past 4 or 5 years. But the difference is they are denounced and highlighted and prosecuted and exposed in the media and political debate every day, saturation coverage. But what we have on the other side is this absolutely extreme hatred from the left that is not chastised by the media, that is not chastised by the Democratic political leadership. It's actually amplified and spread by the media and the Democrats, so that you've got the president of the country, Joe Biden, telling people that his opponent is a threat to the very existence of his own country. This stuff is inflammatory, it's divisive, and it has consequences. And the media has to own up to its share of the problem here. The US media, but of course the media right across the world, because our leftist media does the same thing. They're not interested in policies, they're not interested in ideas, they're not interested in the democratic choices of the American people. They are just interested in portraying Donald Trump as some sort of evil man that must be stopped no matter what, which is ridiculous when you think about it. The guy became president because he was elected, and of course they're trying to stop people having the chance to vote for him again this time. They're the ones who are trying to prevent democracy being exercised.
Journalist and commentator Brad Palumbo says MSNBC host Joy Reid added to the division by comparing Donald Trump to Hitler.
How many times do lefties and the Biden administration and liberal media outlets have to suggest with their absurd hyperbole and alarmism that Trump's America would be literally the Handmaid's Tale, basically saying that women would be forced into sex slavery? That's what that is a reference to. And how many times do they have to say that Trump would be a dictator by distorting one joke he made out of context? Or how many, I mean, we've had MSNBC anchors suggest without evidence that Trump would take their show off air, say over and over again he represents an existential threat to American democracy, also say that he's literally Hitler. That's what Joy Reid, one very angry and unhinged MSNBC analyst, said just recently. How many times do they have to say this kind of alarmist, doomsday, fear-mongering nonsense before one crazy person listens and takes their words seriously and acts accordingly? And that's what I suspect happened Saturday night. Obviously, we don't have final confirmation of the shooter's motivation, but even if not, it's only a matter of time. You can't continue to engage in this kind of the sky is falling, fear-mongering, doomsday rhetoric and expect there to never be any consequences or anybody who actually takes what you're saying at face value. Ultimately, I do, of course, believe that only the shooter is responsible at the end of the day for their actions, but we desperately need leaders in both parties to step up and model civility and take the temperature down in American political discourse, because our culture war and our political conflict is just raging ever more out of control, and it's really disturbing.
And despite Donald Trump being millimeters away from death, MSNBC's Joy Reid still manages to take a dig at the former president.
Universal kind of reaction that I'm getting, whether it's civilians or professionals, is really a deep concern and lack of confidence in not us at this table or us at MSNBC, but us as the media writ large. And a fear that what's going to happen now is that the Republican Party will do what they do. They're in the middle of a campaign. The convention started today. But the media will acquiesce to trying to convince people that the things they've been experiencing for the last 5-6 years didn't happen. That the greatest purveyor and promoter of political violence, really, since anyone can remember, since George Wallace, I think, that we just haven't experienced that kind of open, sort of citing or sort of incitement of violence or sort of luxuriating in the idea of violence. It's just not something we're used to anymore in American politics. And then we had to get used to that being a thing. And people are concerned and expressing concern that we won't be the guardians of memory and that we will allow Donald Trump, as he is, bathed in the glory and grandeur of his party, to rewrite himself as both a hero and a victim, that people who are the most vulnerable to not just the things he's done, but the things he's promising to do, and that will then happen without a guardian saying, wait, stop, and then the media will acquiesce to this rewrite. And the people that I've been talking to don't.
President Joe Biden is also in the firing line for his comments about Donald Trump, which many say fueled Saturday's attack.
You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing.
In a shocking backflip, commentator Mark Davies on X revealed that MSNBC pulled its signature show, Morning Joe, from the airways for fear that some jackwagon panelist would say something grotesquely inappropriate. And in a move hailed as heroic by conservative commentators, Donald Trump Jr. destroyed an MSNBC reporter, calling the network clowns during an interview at the Republican convention.
What is that change going to look like, Don? What practically, your father as president, I think you would even say, was a divisive figure. What's it going to look like in the second term?
I don't think he was a divisive figure at all. I think the media created divisiveness around him. They lied about Russia collusion. They said he was a traitor. They went after him in every which way possible. If the media actually starts being an honest broker, talking about the things that he did, the prosperity he brought, the peace deals that he signed around the world, rather than the disaster that we're living right now, I think you'd do everyone in the country a big favor.
I know immigration's important to him. I covered the family separation crisis closely. Will we continue to see policies like separating 5,000 children deliberately from their parents?
You mean the Obama administration?
You know they didn't do that, sir.
Okay. Sure.
Will there be a second family separation policy?
It's MSDNC, so I expect nothing less from you clowns. Even today, even 48 hours later, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait with your lies and with your nonsense. So just get out of here.